Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending AGU's GeoHealth Early Career webinar that is on preparing for academic positions, essential tips for faculty job seekers. So this will be the first webinar in the series of webinars that will be targeting early career community, early career GeoHealth community. So most of you don't know me. My name is Moiz Usmani. I'm a postdoctoral research associate situated in University of Florida. I'll be one of the moderators for this webinar today. And along with me, I have Dr. Zuing Zhang, assistant professor at Central for Precision Environmental Health, Baylor College for Medicine. So before we start, I want to thank all the members of Early Career Committee who have invested their time to make this webinar happen. So without wasting further time, we'll start with the introductions of our panelists, and all our speakers are here. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I'll moderate that, and Dr. Zhang will moderate all the discussions. So we'll start with Dr. Minghao Chiu. He's an assistant professor at the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences at Stony Brook University. Dr. Minghao, floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Moise, for the kind introduction, and thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. I saw many familiar names and faces in the attendee list, so greetings to everyone as well. So my name is Minghao Chiu. I'm currently actually still a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University. I am going to be an assistant professor in the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, as well as program in public health at Stony Brook University starting this fall. So since this is a career panel that I'll briefly just talk about my own academic background and career trajectories, and then hold most of the conversations in the Q&A session. So I'm trained as a environmental scientist, atmospheric scientist, but I'm during my PhD, but I remain very much interested in the public health implications of many of the environmental risk things I study. So most specifically, I study air pollution and climate change and how these two things interact with each other, and how and sort of understand their human health implications and the different policies that we can use to address their negative challenges. So my academic career and my experience or looking for faculty jobs is more interdisciplinary, but given we are now in GeoHealth session, and this is interdisciplinary by definition, so I hope this will be useful to many of you. So I graduated from MIT, my PhD program in 2021, and I started my postdoc position at Stanford. The first, I started to apply for faculty position actually right after I started my postdoc, and that's advice I got from many of my senior mentors and peer mentors, and that's actually the top one advice I gave to everyone who talked to me about academic career job searching, is actually starting early. I think is beneficial, because I can talk more in the specific detail Q&A session, but I think generally it helps just really demystify the process. Right? As a PhD and a postdoc, getting a tenure track faculty position seems really difficult, and just a completely black box when you look at from the outside perspective. Like, it's very intimidating to think about all the statements you need to write, all that. But once you actually sort of experience that once, I think it helped quite a lot, and it helped demystify the process. You may not succeed in the first round, so I did 2 rounds, but I think doing it in the first round definitely helped me be much more prepared, and especially mentally prepared to for my job searching in the next year. So I applied for some positions in my first year of my postdoc. I only got a Zoom interview, didn't get many offers or anything. But then, as I said, I think that really helped me prepared for my job search the next year. So I went on to a more extensive job search in the second year of my postdoc. I applied, I think, about 20 to 30 positions. All of them are tenure track assistant professor jobs. They span a wide variety of different kind of departments. Most of them are in environmental sciences or atmospheric sciences. Some of them are in public health and public policy. So in the end, I got 4 interviews and 3 offers. And sort of the one I chose is the one at Stony Brook, which is interestingly joint hire between atmospheric science and public health. And I think this is becoming increasingly common in our field, and that might be sort of applied to many of you in the Geo House, because the work we do is interdisciplinary by definition. I guess the last thing I'll mention before I stop talking is I got the offer last year. I decided to defer for a year, so I sort of completed my postdoc. So I decided to do 1 more year of my postdoc, where I complete my postdoc training at Stanford, where I'm now, and I'll join the faculty position in 2024. I think there are many considerations to have for sort of deferral position. Overall, I think it has more benefit than cost, and I'm happy to talk more about sort of my specific decision about deferral, all that in Q&A. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Gio. Thank you for providing the insight and like your experience. We'll get back to you during the panel discussion. And now we'll move to the second panelist. That is Dr. Chamtit O. He is an assistant professor at the Environmental Engineering Sciences, University of Florida. Dr. O, floor is yours.
Thanks, Moise. Do you see my screen? Okay, thank you very much. So, hello everyone. My name is Chamtit O. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Engineering Sciences at the University of Florida. And thank you very much for everyone attending this seminar. I'm very happy to have this chance to introduce myself and share my experiences with you, who will soon be my colleagues in the near future. So allow me to briefly outline my career trajectory as shown in this slide. After obtaining my bachelor's degree and master's degree at Seoul National University in South Korea, which is my home country, I worked as an environmental engineer in the industry for 2 years, and then as a researcher at a national laboratory for 6 years. And then I came to the United States and earned my PhD at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And I started my assistant professor position here at the University of Florida in fall 2023. So it is still my first year here at the UF. As you may have noticed, I have a slightly unique career path. I have a wide range of experiences with various roles in industry, national lab, and academia. In addition, I used to work with geochemistry, focusing on understanding how heavy metals transport and how their fate change in the environment. And later, I decided to expand my expertise to microbiology. During my PhD program, I worked on environmental virology. Now I am looking to my niche in academia with my interdisciplinary field of study between geochemistry and environmental microbiology. As I recall my career, I consider myself fortunate to have chosen this research topic before the pandemic. Having a decent understanding of virology allowed me to seize the chance and perform pretty well compared to those who shifted their focus to virology after the pandemic. Regarding my faculty job application history, I submitted my application to the University of Florida in 2022 when I was a 4th-year PhD student. For that round of job market, it was my only application. While I was going through the application process at the University of Florida, the next round of the job market opened, and I submitted more than 10 applications to other universities, mostly R1 universities and some R2 universities. However, before the screening process began for the second round of the job market, I received an offer from the UF, and I declined all the application for the second round. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about when I first applied for faculty jobs. When I was a senior PhD student, I considered pursuing postdoc position as I feel I might not be fully ready for the faculty position. However, the job description from the University of Florida aligned really well with my CV. My job description outlined several unique features that I believe no one can satisfy all except for me. The job description specified that applicants should have working experience in the industry for 2 years. And after joining UF, I realized that my position was created due to the retirement of a professor specializes in environmental chemistry. So the department needed someone who can cover his vacant with environmental chemistry background. And that was me. So the lesson I learned from my experience is like Steve Jobs' famous saying, connecting the dots. All my career steps have been like incubated until this job has opened. So I'm sure your job will be open up to you soon. I believe searching faculty job is not about being the number one among your peers. It's rather about waiting for your opportunities. So if you are above the average and if you can wait with patience, then you will find your job. Even though it may take time, longer than your expectation, which is very harsh. All my colleagues who wanted to be a faculty member, most of them became indeed find their job. So it'll definitely come to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. That was really interesting to know. Okay, so we'll move to the last panelist, that is Dr. Robbie Parks. He's an assistant professor of environmental health sciences at Columbia University. Dr. Parks, floor is yours.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting panel, something which I think a lot of people have questions about, but don't find too much in terms of their opportunities to actually get their questions answered. So, I want to leave plenty of time for the panel. But in terms of just a brief history of myself, I moved from sort of my undergraduate degree was in physics back in the UK, and then when I came to do my PhD after some time away from academia, I always was really interested in impact and how to apply research from the physics sort of point of view to impact research. And so I ended up working half in physics and half in a public health department at Imperial College in London for my PhD. And so that was, I started my PhD in 2015. And at that point, it sort of was still fairly unusual to do that kind of thing. I think it maybe is becoming more and more typical. And then I did an internship at the UN in Geneva with the World Health Organization and the World Meteorological Organization in the Climate and Health Department. And then I sort of saw opportunities to come to the US there. And so skipping ahead to when I arrived at public health sort of works a little bit, because that's where I am now in the public health sort of ecosystem. With academic jobs, it maybe works somewhat distinctly because I applied for a development grant, which was called the Pathway to Independence from the National Institutes of Health. And that would allow you to go from postdoc, which I was at Columbia, to assistant professor or faculty, whatever you want to call it. And I remained at Columbia. So it wasn't really planned. A lot of what I did wasn't really planned, to be honest. I thought maybe I'd be in the US for 1 year. It's been nearly 5 years. But when I came around to academia, what tended to be clear to me, certainly in public health, was money and ability to get money and potential to bring in funds, because a lot of it is raising your own salary. So I had a grant, and then suddenly, everyone wanted to hire me, and so that was nice. But I sort of took it in perspective, and so I applied to. The first round, actually, I applied to one job, and I got all the way to the fly out interviews, and then didn't get that job. But that was before I had my K99R00 NIH thing. And then once I had that, I applied for 3 jobs, and then I got those 3 jobs. And then I had to decide whether to stay. And I'm sure we'll talk about in detail what happens at that point, but it's always a luxury to have more than one offer. And so, yeah, so that's a brief, unplanned description of my career. But thanks again.
Thank you, Dr. Parks. Now we'll start with the discussion, and Dr. Zwing will basically take charge of that.
Yeah, thank you so
Zwing,
much. Yes, sorry. Yeah, thank you so much for the panelists, the introduction, which is very impressive. So I'm Shuing. I'm another moderator of today. So I will start asking some questions to the panelists. So all those questions about job searching, of course. The first question is, how do you know the position you apply for, and any tips on finding job positions? This is about like two questions. First, what's the way you find the most efficient to find the jobs, find the positions? And another thing is how you identify this job is what do you want to apply?
So I can start, if
Yeah.
you don't mind. So when universities recruit a new faculty, the faculty search committee often encourages the faculty within the program to share the job posting their colleagues outside the department, because we want to receive the referrals from someone we already know. So as I mentioned, I didn't plan to search for the faculty position when I was in PhD program, but my PhD advisor came across the job posting and introduced it to me. So that's how I began applying for the faculty position. So if you have a strong network, they may reach out to you if they have opening relevant to your expertise. So if you were introduced to that position, you are probably the one fitting well to the position. So I think network is really good, important.
So as for me, I was not directly contacted by anyone on the job search committee. I think for me to find the positions, I mostly benefit from a bunch of online resources. So there are a couple Twitter sort of accounts that one of them is in Earth and Environmental Sciences, which is very sort of my home discipline. And there's a Twitter account, and the owner of the Twitter account basically maintain an online Excel sheet that she sort of keep track of all the potentially relevant jobs. So that's something helpful, and there are more than one that kind of job list exists. Another one would be I signed up for a mail list, and this is again is sort of in the Earth and Environmental Sciences career. This is maintained by NCAR, and anyone could sort of post some job announcement on that mail list, and if you subscribe to that mail list, you would get some notification. One of my favorite tips, and I share with everyone I talk to, is actually AGU job search is very powerful. And one thing really interesting, if you go to AGU jobs right now, something like that, just Google it. And there is like an online portal that you can search for all the relevant positions. I think one thing really cool is you can sort of select one keyword and create basically like a daily alert that they will push anything that contains that keyword to you on a sort of a daily basis. So for me, I created one for myself using assistant professor as the keyword. So basically every day at 7 p.m., I get an email from AGU job saying, here are the searches contain assistant professors. obviously not all of them are relevant to my expertise, but I find that's a interesting way to find positions. The final thing is if you have some university you really want to go, like either because of location preferences or like other things, you can just directly search for it, right? Like I know like for different universities, there are internal job lists, and sometimes you just miss those from external job lists, and you can find them by just directly going to the job sites at that university and find the relevant information. I guess the second question is more difficult, and would love to hear what my fellow panelists think about. But often I think that although there is a certain flexibility, like this is what I do, and this is what the job post is about. I mean, oftentimes I think it becomes very clear at a very early stage whether this job position is for you or not. And I feel like I talk to many people sort of who got positions before me, and this is also my personal experience that I only got the jobs that I feel like is perfectly fit for me, right? Like if my work is very interdisciplinary, so many of the positions I got are like joint hires, or like it's clear that it's a disciplinary department, but they're trying to build some new directions. So that's end up being what I think is what relevant to me, and that's actually the offers I got. So I feel like just read the job post and just sort of it will become pretty clear that whether you're a good fit for that job or not. I guess with that being said, like we all apply widely, and I think there's not much harm to apply widely, but just based on my personal experience, like the jobs I end up getting is the one that's are the sort of very tailored to my interest and experience.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I think I before you know I used to use Twitter a lot, and I think that was what honestly I found a lot of my jobs. I mean, I've got of course going to conferences and things like that, networking, but I found that all the jobs that I was interested in were just posted by people I followed on Twitter, and I think you know, I'm not really sure how that works anymore with Twitter and things like that, but social media certainly will play a big role. Yeah, and I agree. I think the job, whether the job is right for you or not, will be quite clear quite quickly. It takes a lot of effort to interview people, so I think you know, having been on the other side now of interviewing people, so they, you know, the other side doesn't want to waste too much of their own time, and so even though you might not get a response, at least if they're going to interview on, even if it's a telephone call, that's a good sign, you know, that they're seriously considering you. Then they're not doing it out of politeness. So so you should take a lot of heart out of that. And you know, even if they don't give you interview, you can maybe ask for some feedback. Or they might not give it to you, but that could be useful too. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question. I think it's to Dr. Chiu. Can you share the email list address here? Maybe if Dr. Chiu, if you are able to do it, maybe put it in the chat box, or another approach is now you can send it to us. Then we can organize those information you guys share here. Then we can maybe probably send out our email to all of the attendees for those information. So I'm gonna move to the next question. This question about how to prepare application materials. So what are key components should applicants focus on when they preparing their CV, cover letter, teaching statement, research statement, or any other materials the job asks for? Like what, based on your experience, like for example, which part of the statement you feel like it's a sparks to the search committee that they mentioned during your interview? Dr. Parks, I saw. Oh, sorry. I just say I saw you. I saw you nod hands. So, do you have experience to share for this question? Yeah.
So sure, yeah. I mean, I'll go ahead. You mean in terms of the package that you make? What's like most important and things like that? Is that kind of the question?
Yes, or like you feel like oh I put this part which is a really good good selection. I put it and it's got some inspired by the search committee and they mentioned during I feel that's a very useful tips.
Yeah. I mean, but I guess having read them myself on the other side is people who are reading them, if they don't know you, they're probably doing it on a plane or on a train or and so make it easy for them to read. And that goes for pretty much everything we write. But figures, people don't tend to put figures in their applications, even if it's schematics of like timelines, just stuff that helps people see like, oh, this is where this person will be in 3 to 5 years. This figure is like a summary of their skills and their it's just like not like fancy, just like stuff from PowerPoint or something. I mean, you could go fancy if you want, and that's another thing, but just something that like pops out. Like if you're reading 50 100 applications but one of them has a figure, it's the human nature that you're probably going to remember that one a bit. So yeah, and then obviously I would tell personal stories, and personal stories and the lessons you derive from them are important too. But yeah, so yeah, I'll stop there.
I can briefly add to Dr. Parks, but this is my personal opinion, but I strongly agree with the simpleness is important for your application package. But in crafting my application package, my strategy was like making it simple and concise. So my cover letter and teaching and diversity statement was just 1 page, and the research statement was 2 pages. So I try to highlight my publications in the interdisciplinary field of study, which I believe is my uniqueness compared to the other applicants, and make it relevant to the job descriptions. So I thought faculty searching committee do not want to spend much time on each application. So I wanted them not to miss what I really want to say. So that's my strategy. Do you have anything to add, Minghao?
No, I think this is perfect. I think this is the number one key message is to I didn't sort of tailor all my statements to that very strict page limit, but I do think that shorter statement is more powerful, and that actually also just force you as an applicant to think harder about what's sort of the what's the highlight message you want to highlight for the committee.
Thank you. So I'm gonna move to the next question. So this question about interview. Did you do your interview in virtual or campus visit? And what tips you have for applicants to make a good interview to be impressed by the search committee for both virtual and in-person interview?
So I can start.
Yeah,
So
please.
my key for faculty job searching process is to understand who they want to hire and tell them why I am the right person. So I had 2-day campus visit for the University of Florida interview. And because I applied for only one university at the time, I had enough time to do my homework. So I studied a lot about individual faculty and try to make connections between my research or myself to each interviewer. Since I have a wide range of experiences, it was really relatively easy for me to find research topics that I can collaborate with them. Even though their expertise are totally different from my expertise, I try to show that I did my homework. For example, we have a professor specializes in engineering education. I have read his publications and asked how I can incorporate your teaching strategy described in this publication X and Y into my classes. So I realized he really satisfied my answer and interviews. And I was able to tell most of the interviewers were satisfied with conversation with me. And I was pretty sure that I would get an offer. And I told my wife, let's go move to Florida.
I guess I'll say a few words about the Zoom interview. So I think this is now very common structure or practices for sort of academic job search nowadays. So there are basically like a two-stage of interview process. So from the whole pool of applicants, the committee will select, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 or 5 to 10 candidates to move into the Zoom interview stage. And then after the Zoom interview stage, they'll have a list of people they want to invite for flyouts. So I think the Zoom interview is, I guess on one hand it's important, but like itself, getting a Zoom interview itself is a pretty good milestone and accomplishment that it's a very strong signal that the committee is very interested in your case. I think my tip for Zoom interview is that just like often the case Zoom interview is very much structured. Like at least for the places I got Zoom interview, if maybe not all of them, but most of them send me a list of questions beforehand. And actually in the interview, that's exactly what they ask, right? The faculty member just go one after the other asking the question on that list. So I think it's really important just to be super prepared for this, and because they're really just looking for standardized information, and you don't want to look like unprepared. I mean, they would ask those really common questions like, can you briefly describe your research interests? Why are you applying to our position? Like, what's your funding plan? Like, what kind of courses you want to teach? Those kind of things. So if you get this question list from the committee for Zoom interview, I think that's great that you can sort of just really need to spend the time to study it and to prepare for it. If you don't get a question list, I think it makes sense to ask them for it, or like just to ask briefly about what kind of question they would cover. But if they didn't really get back to you on that, but like you sort of still get a sense of, but those Zoom interviews are pretty common practices, right? The kind of questions they ask are standard. So you should be prepared nevertheless for that. And I think it's seeming like getting well prepared for Zoom interview is a very positive sign. I mean, there is not much flexibility on Zoom interview, but like if you can strike them as prepared and motivated, and you are really interested in taking this job, I think that will be very positive. Like this will leave a positive impression on the committee.
Yeah, I would just add, so you know, if you're invited to go in person, it's sort of a tiring day or 2 days, and you have to present as well as meeting everyone, and these people who most of them you don't know who they are and you've never met before. You know, being on the other side of it again, you know, a lot of people are judging your science, but just because the science element's been covered quite well by the others. Just remember that, you know, these are humans, and they're probably thinking also, you know, am I going to work with this person for the next 30 years? So there's a personal element too. And so, you know, obviously it goes without saying you shouldn't be like mean or anything like that, but also, you know, just maybe try and show your human side a little bit. You can, you know, tell some, you know, personal stories, you know, whatever's appropriate for the situation, of course. And of course, then, you know, you're not necessarily allowed to be asked about like your family situation and stuff. That sort of is against the rules. But yeah, just if you can think about that element of it too, I think that applies to most of these jobs.
Okay. So next question is, any interview questions you feel difficult to answer?
I think Dr. Parks have some episode.
No, I just yeah, I mean, well, the ones that are difficult to answer are the ones you know you shouldn't be asked. So like someone asked if I had kids, and then you know, you're not supposed to ask that, but but you can go ahead and answer it if you feel comfortable or whatever, but I think yeah, some of the most difficult ones are the ones which are sort of the most meaningless as well, are like, why Colombia, or like, why? It's like, because you got a job and I want a job, so that's the real answer, but you can't say that, so you have to say yeah, oh, because of the values and all this stuff. So you have, unfortunately, you just have to prepare that stuff a little bit, like specific to the university. If you go out to the physical location, then yeah, on the plane or night before, you should be looking at the values page of the university or something like that. But also, I think it's difficult to say, well, why this department? What would you do? What would you do here with potential colleagues, and have some idea about that? Because if you say, well, actually, I didn't even, it just reflects badly if you say, oh, I haven't had time to look at the people in this department. I don't know anything about these people. That that's sort of a horror story sort of reaction to that kind of question. So yeah, just small things. I mean, in proportion to the time you have to prepare. So you're not supposed to know everyone's life story, but just like a little idea about the department. So yeah.
Sounds like sometimes the easiest question is very difficult to answer. Yeah. So Dr. O and Dr. Chiu, can you share your experience?
So can I go first? Okay, so
Yeah, of course.
there are two questions comes into my mind. First, one interviewer mentioned a specific research program that exists on campus, which might be relevant to my research. And they asked me if I knew it. I didn't know that. But if I knew that and explain how I can utilize that resources, that I would give them a greater impression. And the second question that was very challenging was related to public health, because my works are related to COVID-19 and public health. Some people were wondering what is the right approach in handling this pandemic. When I had an interview, the country still have two opposite opinions on what we've done during the COVID-19. For example, a mask mandate or requirements on vaccination for certain jobs. It was even like a political issue, if you remember still. So nobody gave me any pressure on like a certain opinion, but I try to be politically neutral to answer those type of questions.
I guess for me, the sort of difficult interview questions, so like one of them is on funding, right? So obviously we're all anticipating that this coming up, but I think as a junior person, a postdoc or late career PhD student, like we don't spend enough time thinking about this kind of topics. So I think, I mean, like when I ask this question, I often just raise the sort of names of the federal agency. I say I can get money from NASA, NSF, NIH, all that. But like certain times you got pushed deeper into which program at NSF. And so I think it's useful and interesting to sort of study it a little more. It's just, I think at the early career, like postdocs, we don't often spend enough time thinking about it. So that's certainly one questions I think I got asked once, and I didn't prepare super well at that, which I wish I spent more time on it. The other one is more, I think, tricky, is on like whether you already have offers from other places, or like what sort of your preferences, all that. And I don't think I can give a generic answer. I mean, this is often case by case, right? It's depending on whether the offer you have hand is better than the position you're at the places you're interviewing or not. I think that would change how you sort of navigate this question. But overall, I think if you already luckily have more than one offer coming into a interview, then this question may come up, and it could come in different ways. Like they could say, oh, if we give you an offer, like what's your timeline for make a decision, something like that. And I think, so if you luckily already have more than one offer, I mean, you can spend a little more time thinking about it and just have a diplomatic answer or a strategic answer that fits your interest.
Okay, great. So the next question is about job offers. So for your own experience, what should applicants consider when they evaluating job offers to take, especially when you got multiple offers? How to evaluate which one you want to take, and can how did you negotiate, then make comparison, and then what you negotiate? Can you share that experience?
Okay, I can go first. Okay, Dr. Minghao, you can go first. No, you can go first, please.
Okay, I can go first. So I think, well, so first of all, I think consider yourself being very lucky to have this situation, but this is often very challenging because we were never trained or lectured on how sort of to make negotiations, so that can make very intimidating. So I think my top one tip is really just to find a mentor. Like that could be someone you know sort of in the similar discipline, like maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of you. They may have been into a similar position. So getting someone to talk to is really valuable to sort of think about these situations. So in terms of evaluating the offers, there's obviously this is very personal specific, but there's the career perspective of it, right? Like how much money you're getting from each position, like what's the startup, like what sort of the teaching load, what are some of the faculty members already in the department? Are there strong basis for collaboration, all that kind of things. What's your overall impression when you interview at that place? I think that's often really important. This seems like a collegial kind place to work in. Like, are you going to be genuinely happy in this place for 5 to 6 years or even longer time? So I think those are important. And obviously there is the non-academic part, right? Like, do you like the city? Like if you have a partner, like will your partner be happily living in those places? I mean, those kind of considerations are often much more important in sometimes, but we sometimes underlook those. I think in terms of negotiation, one tip I got, which I think is true based on my experience, is that you should always negotiate, and there's no limit for your negotiation. I mean, so people sort of when we're sort of at this job seeking stage, one thing we often concern about is I'm asking too much. I'm asking too much, so they will take back the offer. The answer is most likely no. I mean, unless you're asking some astronomical number. So that's why also having a peer mentor is helpful, that they could look at your negotiation package and determine whether this seems reasonable or not. So you should always negotiate. Everything is negotiable. You can negotiate salary, you can negotiate teaching load, negotiate some startup like student support. Like for me, I'm an international student, I'm an international scholar, so I can also negotiate things like visa issues, like all that kind of things. So yeah, so I think it's helpful to find a mentor and sort of to think about the list that you need, the list of resources you need to be successful, and just negotiate them. I mean, also remember they're not going to say yes on everything. So I mean, so it's a negotiation process.
Go ahead.
And yeah, I think Dr. O, yeah, you have
Okay.
something to say. Yeah.
So because I received only one offer, I don't have anything to share, but as far as I see, I believe assistant professor have little room to negotiate their offers, specifically salary-wise. Unless you have worked in the other universities for years before you coming to the new university. And also for student support. It's like there's standard for these kind of two terms. But I think we may have a little bit of room to negotiate in startup funding. So department may give you a chance to draft startup fundings, and you may want to provide compelling reasons for each item you request. even though once you receive the offer from the department will be your side. Department will support your offer because your startup funding is the asset of the department. So you should not be like intimidated by the department chair committee. They will help you to put together the draft, but you should provide compelling reasons. The college or university may cut out some items, which is my case. So yeah, compelling reasons are necessary.
I totally agree. I think to negotiate, sorry to jump in. You instead of saying what I want, you should say what I need, then provide reasons.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. Just to add, in terms of the timing, I think if they want you and they're going to give you an offer, it's important to try and slow the process down to a level that to a speed at which you're comfortable to do the negotiation. So like it would be unprofessional of the other side to do this, but they do this sometimes, is to say, we need to know now, like, what do you need? And so if they do that, you say, hang on, it's hard not to be intimidated, but to say, hang on, I need some time to think about this. And if they want you, which they should, 1 week is not going to make a difference to them, but it will make a huge difference to you. And so like what that will allow you to do, and I did this, I slowed the process down as to the slowest I could possibly make it, because I had to think about 3 different offers at the same time. And obviously playing them against each other is kind of useful, but always being honest. With things that are negotiable with startup, I would just say is, have a number, but the number should be backed up with I made an completely itemized list of things that I needed, in terms of down to the furniture, computers, and it just happens to come to the number that I want, right? And so how you get to that number is, okay, you could come up with it in your head, but then fill it out with actual real things. And also that once you do ask for something, you need to ask, I would suggest, this is my personal view, you need to ask for the things, you get one chance to do it. So like if you say, oh, spousal hire is not important to me, but then in 1 month or 2 weeks you say, actually, no, it is important to me, they're not going to take you seriously. So I would say you have one chance to make your case, and that's why you should take your time to do it.
Thank you. So I'm gonna ask the last question, and I also want to remind the audience. You can just put your questions in the chat box. I know I asked a lot of questions, but you can also ask the questions. We still got some time for the QA session at the end. So my last question is, I think some people already addressed. What are the common mistakes that applicants should avoid during the whole job searching process, starting from looking for jobs to the negotiation and signing offers? So it'd be great if any of you can share some experience or some comments or tips.
I'll get started. So I think I already mentioned this too. I think the 2 important tips are now sort of reflecting back to my job seeking experiences. One, you should always have a mentor that you can talk to. I mean, you can have more than one mentor. Sometimes your PhD or postdoc advisor is super helpful, but they likely already got their position like 20, 30 years ago, and that might not be really relevant at this point. So find someone sort of at your stage, right? So that you can talk to. I mean, that the person that you feel very comfortably talking to about like through the entire process, right? Like evaluating whether this job seems relevant to me or not. I mean, looking at your statement, offer some feedbacks, and offer some interview tips. All that, I think that's super valuable. I benefit a lot from talking to mentors, especially at the offer negotiation stage. I mean, I think that's super helpful to have. The other thing I said at the very beginning, but I just think it's super important, is don't be too intimidated by the process. I mean, so I guess especially that oftentimes we think we're not ready enough for sort of apply for a job, and that's, I mean, that's totally understandable. I have been there, but it's just not a super constructive mindset to have. I mean, I think you should think of this as a more iterative process, right? As long as you graduated from your PhD and you feel like, or even before your graduation, you feel like you are interested in academic career, you should sort of already try the water temperature, right? Like just put in some application to see what happened, right? To get a sense of the process, and then to know, like, sort of to get a sort of market evaluation of you, right? Like based on your current portfolio, are you going to get any interviews or things like that? I mean, that all helps demystify the process and sort of get just more prepared for actually the actual application of the job.
I really agree with Dr. Ming Hao. Matching well to the job description is the most important thing you should keep in mind. So high performance or smartness does not guarantee your success in job search process. So universities basically will hire you not simply because you are smart or productive, but because you are someone they need. So do not delay your first application until you feel you're ready. But I would recommend, like Ming Hao, start job hunting as soon as possible and expose yourself to several rounds of job markets. In that way, you will be more likely to come across job posting that is looking for you.
Yeah, I just to quickly add, I think in terms of actually applying, it's quite intimidating to get all the documents together. So I would just ask for materials from your close friends, and a lot of that will, I guess now we've got AI, but I don't know if that, I think people will be able to tell if you use AI still. I still think so. But in terms of like getting inspiration from friends, I think that's really helpful. And it's, this stuff kind of takes time. So I remember the first application I used, which ultimately I just reiterated for different applications, but I think that took me several weeks to get together. And that's thinking as well as doing. So give yourself enough time as well to get all this stuff together.
Thank you. So I have asked all of my questions. There's one question in the chat box. So Chen Hui Ye asked, thank you so much for your valuable insights and advice. May I ask how unique we needed to develop research vision different from our PhD or postdoc advisor?
I think that's really important because I know him. Frank, thank you for the question. So I really believe that we should differentiate ourselves, our expertise from our previous advisor. And faculty searching committee will ask you how you will differentiate your expertise from your advisor. And actually the university, for the tenure evaluation, they will exclude our achievement that is relevant to the related to the previous advisors. So they want to see us being independent researcher and create a new field of study. That's actually the expectation that I see from the R1 universities. If it's not R1 universities, the story may be different.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think that's,
yeah, please.
that's true. Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's you got to do it. I think it's probably worth having a conversation with your your postdoc supervisor at some point early on and say, you know, I understand there are pressures to separate us. So, you know, just some people may run the risk of having it taken personally if you know, seemingly artificially create a rift from not including them on papers and things. So just to be aware of that too.
And there's another question. So since we running a little out of time, so this is probably the last question we're gonna do here. So how detailed does the research statement need to describe the work you intended to do? Is it closer to our proposal summary? And Dr. Parks, are you talking or mute? Dr. Parks, you're mute. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, I would say slightly different from a proposal because it's got to have science in it, but science, proving that you know the science isn't necessarily the point beyond like having the right references and knowing the right facts. It's more about creating a narrative that excites the people reading it. And I think so yes, they're related, but you know, in my mind, the proposal is kind of like you got to excite them, but it's based on, you know, solid dry facts in a way, whereas the research statement, I would say you got to excite them, but from a slightly different place. Like, this person's cool, this research is cool, I want to be involved with this, I've got to collaborate with this person. So slightly different, I would say.
I agree with Dr. Parks. I believe what the faculty search committee want to see from the research statement is the vision that the applicants have and how that research expertise can be related to the existing program within the department. So I think this is the opportunity for you to appeal your vision and collaboration with the department.
Yeah, just very quickly, I agree with both the statements. I think also just bear in mind that the search committee or most of the members in the search committee are not likely from your research discipline, right? They may not really understand the detailed scientific question you outline, but so therefore you need to sort of really outline or start from the big picture and get them excited about your research vision and let them see how your expertise connect to what they're looking for and the kind of strengths they are planning to build in their department.
There's another quick question in the chat box. Is it necessary to write a thank you letter after each interview?
I highly recommend.
And do you write only to the committee chair, or you write it to everyone?
All the interviewers. Yeah, all the interviewers.
So for Zoom interview, you just search the name on the Zoom, then find their email. Yeah.
For my university, we have one vote for one faculty, so you should send email to everyone.
Okay, so I think like we are up with the time. Before we wrap up, there are a couple of things I want to add. So we will be having a next webinar on the people who have won Outstanding Student Presentation Awards. That will be organizing it shortly. And apart from that, we have a chair from Early Career Committee, Yuchin and Yun. If they want to add something about the Early Committee and they want to say something about that.
Actually, I have something. There's still a question about the email list about finding jobs. Maybe we can ask the panelists to send us those information, then we summarize, then send out to all of the attendees. We should be able to get your email from your Zoom when you log in Zoom secretly.
Yeah. It seems like we and Yujin have nothing to add. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, Chem, Robbie, and Minghao to agreeing for this discussion, for this webinar. And it was really, I think like it is helpful for everyone who is looking for faculty positions and is going to guide them in a better direction. Thank you so much for your time. And it seems like we are done. If you want to add something, panelists. last word of wisdom or something?
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for attending it. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks, bye.
much.